Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for the 2019 Alpine Winter Games pre-competition webinar. My name is Kendall Zeswitz. I'm the Special Olympics Maryland staff lead for Alpine skiing. I am also joined on the line tonight with Steve Bennett, Matt Otwell, George Hergenhan, and Mike Zarnowski. So at this time, Matt and George, I am going to unmute your lines. If you guys wouldn't mind self-muting until it's your turn to speak on the slides, that would be fantastic. We are also recording this webinar, so I'll be sending out the link and the slides tomorrow. And if you have any questions that pop up during the presentation, there's two ways you can go about it. You can either raise your hand, and once we get to a good point in the webinar, I can unmute your line for you to ask your question, or you can always type a question into the question box, which I will be monitoring, and we can answer your questions that way. All right, so we have a lot to get through and a hard stop time tonight because the snowshoeing webinar is right after ours. This is the agenda of everything that we are going to talk about. Some points of emphasis are the new helmet process, checking the certified helmets for the certain race courses. We are transitioning to the new escort procedure and just going over the schedule and everything since it will differ from the last Winter Games that we had in 2017. All right, so the purpose of tonight's meeting is to make sure you guys are all as informed as possible to get started for our 2019 Winter Games. I will start speaking on the helmet process. So first off, thank you for all of the work that you guys put into procuring their helmets and making sure that your athletes and partners and coaches all had them for the 2 race training days. So our process is going to be very similar to what we did at the on-snow trainings, with the exception of you will only need to have your helmet checked on that Sunday. We got Special Olympics Maryland stickers. One will go on the helmet, one will go on the bib, and we are going to check it prior to your time trial slot. So if you could make sure to arrive early to give us plenty of time to check your athletes' helmets, we will be doing that on the 2nd floor of the lodge where the control center is. It's going to be a bright green sticker, so I know, Anne Arundel, you guys have hexane yellow, but I made sure it's a shade that'll stand out on there, so no worries there. If your athlete or partner's bib tears and they're unable to wear it, that's totally fine. We will have a backup bib, but they will need to come back to the control center, show their helmet, so they can get that sticker on their bib. We just want to make sure that all of the right people are going down the right courses. Matt, if you want to start talking on time trials.
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. Truly appreciate it. As everyone is aware, we attempted to make this change last year for the 2018 Winter Games, but unfortunately weren't able to put it into play. This year, we're all very excited. We're looking to get back to a true three-day event and having the time trials on Sunday and competition on Monday and Tuesday. Now, what this means is we'll go through the schedule a little bit as far as the arrival times for each county to show up to the course. Much as we've done in the past, we're going to use the same flow as we've done on a typical Sunday. We are starting just a little bit later, so that way we can have more time throughout the day and also get closer to the dinner time. So that way we don't have a big gap between the end of time trials, as big a gap as we could have between the end of time trials and the start of dinner. So as you see on this form, on this slide, that any changes, our goal is to be complete with all of the time trials by approximately 3 p.m. If we do go over, we do ask any changes that you want to submit them to the control center no later than 3:30 p.m. Of course, if we do run into challenges with our schedule, we will make accommodations to this time, but please get any changes you want into the control center as soon as possible. So here's our schedule. We're going to start. What we're trying to do is allow the appropriate counties and delegations to not have to rush too much on Sunday, because as we know, transportation can be a challenge. So we're starting with a lot of the counties that are closer in proximity to Whitetail and going earlier, and those counties that have farther to travel, we're going to have them later in the morning or early in the afternoon. As you can see, it's kind of a packed schedule. We're going to be starting at 10 a.m. and our goal is to start 10 a.m. prompt, so that way we can have everyone go through. Just a reminder for time trials, if your athlete has one good run, that is all they need. If you're satisfied and the athlete is satisfied, and we will have officials there with the flags to hold up as a good run, or a white flag for a good run, red flag for a bad run. So that way you know immediately if that athlete did not have a good run for any reason, they can go back up and get their second run in. But again, if that athlete has a good run and they're satisfied with their time and you're satisfied with the time, they only need that one good run for time trials. And I think that's everything for time trials. Kendall?
Yeah, awesome. So the other thing with the time trials day is we will have opening ceremony on that Sunday, which is a little bit different than things have happened in the past. And we will also have the HOD meeting at the Ramada Plaza at 10 p.m. Steve, is there anything you want to add?
No, again, just make note of the dinner time, because the dinner Sunday night during time trials will be there at Whitetail. We have upped the dinner menu a little bit. Instead of the typical lunch selections you will have, in addition to that at dinner, you also have an option of a fruit cup and a dessert as well. So again, we just want to make the dinner a little bit more heavier, knowing that, and then everyone will lead into the opening ceremony and then head to the hotels for the evening.
And we do have a question from Al Jenks. So Al, I have unmuted your line.
Okay, thanks, Kendall. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we sure can.
All right. Hey, Matt, got a quick question for you. If I know that I'm going to have my athletes take 2 runs for time trials on Sunday, how much coaching can I do, if any, on that first run?
Well, I would refrain. Actually, I would refrain from any coaching while they're on the course.
Okay. All right.
Because again, you don't want to get your athlete.
My mind, and I thought I'd better ask it. And so no problem. I just wanted to check and make sure. Thanks.
No, that's a great question. Yes, no, I would refrain from doing any coaching while they're on the course whatsoever, just to make sure you're in line with the rule as far as from a coaching perspective, so that way your athlete is not used to someone calling out commands outside the course. And then if someone else, because think of it also this way, and the reason I'm going a little bit more in depth is for all the other coaches on the line. Let's say you do help them during time trials, and let's say a family member or someone else is watching during competition and they don't hear you giving those commands, they may inadvertently think they can do that, give those commands, and then unfortunately the athlete would be disqualified.
Okay. All right. Good answer. Appreciate the in-depth explanation, things I hadn't even thought about. So, nope, that's good.
No trouble.
All right, Matt, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, and we have another question from Rich Bird. So, Rich, your line will be all open.
Yeah, dovetailing into that, I guess if you have an athlete and you wanted to tell him there were certain places on the course that he could have taken a little bit more chances, or he wanted to slow down more, you could probably tell him to do a second run on that, and you might be able to do that. Therefore, you wouldn't be coaching him while he was on the course. You might want to consider that if you wanted to try to increase his time.
By all means, yeah. And that's as I mentioned before. If the athlete is satisfied and the coach is satisfied, if you feel the athlete could do better and give them some coaching once they're outside the course, by all means, please go for that second run.
Yeah, then he takes the second run. That way you don't have to worry about that situation while coaching while he was on it.
No, exactly right. No, that's a great point. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. All right. So this is our schedule for Monday. Matt, if you want to run through, it's all Alpine specific material.
Certainly. As we're gonna try and get on the slopes a little earlier on Monday. Should give us time. The first course inspection should be open by about 9:15 a.m. with competition on, and we'll go through the actual competition schedule a little bit more in depth later in the slides. competition for some of the levels will start at 10 a.m. with course closure between 12:15 and 1. We'll pick up Alpine Awards will start before lunch, that is, at 11:15. Then we will go through the afternoon with all of our competition. And then coaches meeting, it says 4:30 here, but approximately 15 to 20 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes after the last competition is over, as Kathy and I and George and everyone may be tending to some issues or some of the aspects of the course. Give us a little bit of time. At the latest, we want to try and go maybe 5:15. So we'll get some, if we can't meet at 4:30, we'll try to get some kind of communication out to let everyone know what time that will be. Now, there is, I'm not sure, and this is something I wasn't sure with our new staging procedure, if we are still going to have a tent at the base. So we may have to get some communication out as far as where we're going to hold this meeting. Typically, we've held it in the staging tent in the past, but we'll get the communication out as far as exactly where we'll hold this meeting.
Yeah, Matt, this is
yes,
Steve. We actually do have that tent that has been used for staging at the base of the mountain by the ski racks over near the ski rental building coming through towards the main lodge. And that tent has actually been designated as the Alpine Award staging tent this year, so that should be open for a coaches meeting in the afternoon.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. So we'll plan on meeting in the same place. Then once we wrap that up, everybody go to dinner, and then the dance starting at 7 p.m. with the family reception from 7:30 to 8:30. Next slide, Kendall, please.
Just a couple clarifiers here. On the dinner, again, after our competition on Monday, we'll head back to the Ramada Plaza. That's where all delegations are housed this year, thanks to Jane Dunn and her putting the puzzle together. The athlete social and dance will follow dinner. The theme of the dance, if you haven't heard yet, is the Monster Mash. And then we also have a family reception that's designated for family members only of the participants, and that's right kind of across the parking area from the Ramada at the Homewood Suites. Again, that's designated for family members of the participants only.
So Tuesday, be very similar schedule. We'll try and get everything going as quickly as possible. Breakfast, of course, in the morning at the hotels. Any more registrations or anything at the control center at 8 a.m. Then get things going about 9 a.m. with competition up through lunch. So here's the overall schedule. It's a little challenging to see, but this is a format we found that is very useful to us as we can see all the multiple events that are happening simultaneously. We talked a lot last year and earlier this year on our preseason webinar about the changes we made to the schedule with having time trials back on Sunday, having opening ceremonies move to Sunday night, and that opens us up all day Monday. One of the challenges we were having, and I apologize, I'm going to digress here for a minute. Some of the challenges we were having on Monday was to accommodate additional athletes. We ran into scheduling challenges if there were problems, if there's weather problems. We wanted to try and open this up a little bit more so that way we could continue to grow alpine skiing within Winter Games. So what we did by moving opening ceremonies back to Sunday night, this opens up Monday. And one of the biggest advantages that we see with doing this is between the Super G and the Giant Slalom courses, which are two. Super G is the most popular race, with Giant Slalom coming into a close second. What we always ran into by running the intermediate Super G and advanced Super G back to back is that if there were any problems with the first race, they always ran into the second, caused other problems. We had a cascade problem at that point with everything else getting pushed back. So what we've done is we've staggered our competitions. We're doing intermediate Super G in the morning and advanced Giant Slalom in the morning. Then we're going to flip that for the afternoon. So we should have those races completely done by approximately lunchtime. We pick back up, get everybody, get the athletes back out on the slopes. And then with hopefully our more efficient staging method, we can really make a smooth running games in the afternoon, get to advanced Super G, and then intermediate Giant Slalom in the afternoon. Then Tuesday, it's pretty much going to be the same schedule that we've always had. We like to get everything going in the morning, so that way if we have problems, if we have delays, we have a good bit of the afternoon that we can push things back and make sure we get the competition in. So are there any questions pertaining to the schedule?
It looks like Al Jink has a question. So Al, your line is unmuted.
Thanks, Kendall. Hey, and a question that I tried to get answered at an earlier webinar has to do with the coach to athlete ratio. What is it for this year, and is it the same ratio that we've had in past years?
Is your question specific to competition, staging? Can you give us a little bit more context to your question?
Well, it has to do with staging because, we have, how many are we going to have? We're going to have 13 skiers, and out of those 13, 10 of them will be, or 9 of them are going to be competing in intermediate. And since I missed the preseason webinar, I didn't get all the details on all of this. So I'm a little concerned about how thinly we're going to be stretched on escorting our athletes up.
I tell you what, we have a specific slide coming up that's dedicated to the new staging process. If you don't mind, we're going to let George go through that staging slide, and that may answer your question. If it doesn't, we can talk about it then. I want to open it up just right now, address any questions in particular to the competition schedule.
Okay. And then just one other thing, if Michelle Emily from St. Mary's County is on this call, I need to get in touch with her after this conference call to talk about adaptive assistance. Do you know if she's in on this call this evening?
Hey, Al, it's Kendall. She is. I will connect you with her contact information after
you sent me her email, and I can go ahead and email her and give her my phone number then. Okay, great.
Perfect. I can also address the 3-to-1 ratio really quick for any other counties who may have this as an issue. So we are still staying with 3-to-1, which we do for other counties. However, new coaches as escort procedures, your county is running into extreme circumstance where you really just work it out.
Hey, Kendall.
You're breaking up a lot.
This is Mike. Kendall, you're breaking up something fierce. What she was trying to say is that the 3-to-1 ratio is in place. If you have a special circumstance, you can contact us. But Kendall, I'm not sure what's going on with your microphone, but there's a lot of rattling in it.
This is Steve. Are you getting the same interference with my voice?
Not so much.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not
sure. We lost every third or fourth word from Kendall. So.
Oh man, sorry about that. For some of you, it might have been your lucky day, but I will try to move closer to the phone. We also are running a little bit short on time, so if we could hold off on questions until the end, and then we can just do an open floor and answer them all, that would be fantastic. Or you can send them in, type in the questions in the questions typing pane, and I could try to answer them throughout the webinar. So if there is nothing else on the actual schedule, we are going to move into our new staging procedure. And George, if you would like to speak on this, that would be fantastic.
Okay, thank you, Kendall. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we've talked about this a little, but I don't want to hurry through it. If there's anybody on the call that hasn't heard all this before, please feel free to send your question to Kendall, and we'll make sure we answer it. But we're trying to change the escort procedure only because, being a Monday and Tuesday event, we have great difficulty recruiting enough escorts. So what we're asking is that the coaches will escort the athlete to the staging area. So there's going to be separate staging areas at each race course. They will be at the top of the race course. Although we're talking about something that's changed, I want to highlight all the things that haven't changed. The schedule you get, the time on the schedule will always be the time that you report to staging. That's the way it's always been. And so that will continue this year. It's just that staging is in a different location. We'll have a volunteer then to check everybody in and get the heats together. And again, following the policy that we've always had in place, we will either wait for the scheduled competition time to send them over to the race course, or if everybody's early, we may go ahead and send them over early. But if you're not there, we will wait for you. We ask then that the escorts go to the end of the race course to wait for the competitors. We do plan to have a staging volunteer at the end of the race course to help you make sure that you get the heat together. And before you leave for the second run, make sure that everybody's there. All competition events are 2 runs, so you'll escort them back to the staging area. The staging volunteer then will again make the decision as to when they go over to the race course. And then again, we ask you to go to the end of the race course and wait for them, and then take them to the awards area after the second run, which, as Steve has just mentioned, is the tent just outside of the rental shop. A couple things I want to address, and Al, this may address your question, and I know it's come up once or twice. We don't need, so there's up to 8 athletes in a heat. So that means there may be 5, 6, 7 areas involved in a heat. We don't need everybody to stay. At the most, 2 escorts are needed for a heat, and some of the heats, 1 escort is enough. I would think of the advanced skiers, for example. We sometimes send advanced heats out with just 1 escort. So we don't need you to stay if you've got other athletes to go and bring out to the staging area. We also have asked, again, we have difficulty recruiting these volunteers, but we have asked for several volunteers who can be at the race course, at the staging area of the race course, and who will be available as escorts. It's not a lot. Hope maybe 2 or 3 per race course, but if we're really tight, if the coaches are really busy, we can press one of these volunteers into service and use them as escorts. So I think we've tried to address some of the concerns about this. We think it's going to work pretty well, but that's, so I hope we have addressed those concerns. Kendall, was there a next slide? I think there were 2 slides on this.
Yep.
Oh, and this is just a reminder about coaching. So real quickly, and Matt touched on this earlier, so I'll just be real quick about it. You can speak to the competitors while you're escorting them. You can speak to them between runs. You cannot give them any assistance while they are on the course. And I want you to look at the second line of this. Once the competitor enters the staging area. So under this new procedure, the staging area is really part of the race course. These staging volunteers are going to be under the supervision of the people who supervise all the other course volunteers. They're going to be considered part of that crew. So we are making a point that staging area and race course, no specific coaching or assistance or a discussion of anything. It's when they're outside of that area, when you're with them, escorting them, you can talk to them about anything as far as their race goes. Kendall, did anybody submit a question or any concerns?
Nope. Actually, yes. So it is the same with the 3-to-1 ratio question. Al, I believe this is from you. And yes, George did touch on this. So we are using that ratio still. And there will be volunteers, excess volunteers, just in case you aren't able to make something work out with the amount of coaches that you have. So just keep us in the loop with that, and we will make sure to get all the athletes where they're supposed to be so no one gets lost. But besides that, George, that was your only question. So unless you have anything else, we can move on.
Yeah, I'll just emphasize real quick the point I made before, again, in response to Al and your concern, is that we don't need all the coaches to stay there. Just one or two should be enough for each heat. So, that's, I just wanted to make sure everybody got that, Kendall. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So a conditions update really isn't too much of an issue this year as it was last year. We look like we have a great base for snow, and the weather's looking pretty cold and ready for us to have our winter games. If there are anything that pops up, we will announce the course change decisions communicated through Monday morning. That way you are starting your competitions on Monday fully aware of any changes if they occur.
This is Steve Bennett. This is just kind of the basic outline of Whitetail Resort. For those of you who've been there before, it's pretty much the same other than the staging processes and locations we talked about for Alpine. The only other thing, which again doesn't affect you guys as Alpine coaches, but just so you're in the loop, we have in the past had 2 family hospitality locations, one over near the snowshoeing area and one in the lodge. We've combined that this year to one main family hospitality area, which will be in the upper level of the lodge. That's also where the merchandise station will be. Other than that, there's not much change here. When we move the control center from the upper level of the main lodge Sunday afternoon into the control center location over by the ski rental and the KMC learning facility location where it has been in the past, that's also the same location where on Sunday evening and Monday evening you can drop your skis for the skiers for Alpine in the bins that we will have and then store them overnight. Again, I think it's mentioned later, but just make sure you tag the skis to make sure that the athletes get the right skis for the next morning session.
All right, so these are the Alpine courses that we have. They are the same that we've used in the past. So you can see at the bottom left is where we do the glide and the super glide on Velvet. Our novice races are also run on Velvet. And then we have intermediate on Stalker, Super G on Sidewinder, and over on the advanced course that is Home Run. Right, so the head coaches meeting, Matt touched on this one already, so we will have it in the Alpine Awards tent area at the conclusion of races on Monday. If we have to change it, say the awards don't get done for some reason, we'll make sure to communicate that with all of you so you know exactly where to go and what to expect. It shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. We just want to touch base after competition ends on Monday and prepare you all for a great day on Tuesday. So the awards flow for this year, we'll have the coaches acting as escorts for the volunteers who need to step in. They're going to bring the athletes from the competition area to the awards area. Your skis are going to be placed in the ski racks that are near the lodge and right by the awards venue. The escort will then check in the athlete and division into awards. So this works really well with switching to this new coaches as escorts role because you would need a coach or a registered delegation volunteer to be in the awards area to cheer on the athlete and then take responsibility for the athlete. Please don't just leave your athletes once they get to the awards area to run all over Whitetail. Make sure that they are either with your delegation or with their parent. That way they're just not running crazy. Coaches and other delegation volunteers are not permitted in the awards staging tent unless specifically asked to come in by Anna McCauley. So Anna runs all of our ceremonies and our awards over at Alpine. And if she asks you to step in and help out, please do so because there's always a lot going on in there. But please be respectful of not just inserting yourself if you haven't been asked. Also, please don't crowd around the entrance to the awards tent. We want to keep the entrances as clear as possible. It gets crowded and we want to keep it not congested. Delegations need to have someone dedicated to the awards area for meeting the athletes after the presentation, so staying there through the presentation through the very end. We already kind of spoke about coaches. Oh, sorry, went back a few slides by accident. And family members staying out of the staging tent for awards. Encourage your parents to sit in the awards tent, cheer on some of the other athletes who might be getting their medals and ribbons before their son or daughter is getting theirs. And we will always post the results for Alpine. It's going to be on the windows of the pizza restaurant on the back side of the lodge. So it's directly under the control center where the steps connect the second floor down to the ground floor by the ski racks.
Yeah, registration, just a reminder that registration is for the heads of delegation each day. So on Sunday, the heads of delegation will come up to the main lodge upper level to check in. If you have any scratches as a coach, please let your head of delegation know and they can report those at that time. Otherwise, again, Matt and the Alpine crew will speak with all the coaches at that time. That's also where the delegations will pick up their bibs and tickets for the lifts, rentals, and meals as well. Again, that's going to happen every day, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And a reminder as coaches, the bibs that you receive from your head of delegation on Sunday morning, that will be utilized for the time trials and for the 2 days of finals. So make sure that you collect those bibs at the end of the races, keep them where they're safe and sound so that you can utilize those for all 3 days. If you have any unused tickets, whether they're meal tickets, lift tickets, or rental tickets that aren't being utilized, make sure you hand those back to your HOD to turn in to the control center so that we cannot, so that we won't be billed for those and won't have to charge the areas for any items that are not utilized. So the only other thing is really want to stress, as we've had issues with this in the past, please notify your families and yourselves and everybody when you get to the Whitetail Resort. Just park in designated parking areas. We've had issues with people parking at the ops building, which is where the snowshoeing time trials occur, and along grass areas, etc. Please make sure you park in designated marked spots that do not say no parking. If we have to, there may be a reason where we need to tow you, and nobody wants that. So again, just park in good spaces. Enough said.
So coaching during competition, George spoke a little bit about this with the escorting procedure. So coaching during competition is contrary to the goals of what we are aiming to do with Special Olympics Maryland. It's an unfair advantage to our athletes and partners who are supposed to be competing in their events independently. The way I see it is you've trained your athletes all season. This is their time to shine. Let them show off what they've learned. Let them impress their parents all on their own without the help of you guys. Coaching is not permitted by not just any coach, but any spectator, family member, or non-competing athlete or partner. It's going to be prohibited in the start area and while the athlete or partner is on the competition course. So what is coaching? You are always able to cheer on your athlete by saying, "Go, John, go," or cheering on them on as they're making their way down the hill. But please don't use direct things like put your skis downhill and it will be easier to get up. That kind of stuff is coaching, and it will not be allowed. So if you coach your athlete as they are going down their run, that athlete or partner will be disqualified from the race and will receive a participation ribbon for the event. For the individual who is doing the coaching, for their first offense, they are going to be required to leave the race course for the duration of the event. If it happens again, they will be ejected from Winter Games. All of our officials are fantastic, and if they hear you guys coaching, they will politely ask you to stop coaching, so please listen to them. We don't want to remove anyone from Winter Games. It's going to be a great weekend for all of us, and yeah, so coaching is not allowed whatsoever. Delegations and coaching, HODs and coaches are strongly requested to ensure that their participants are not disqualified by a member of their delegation who is providing coaching. Please, please, please speak to the other members of your delegation as well as the family members and just remind them of this so we can avoid any potential issues. For overnight ski storage, anyone who is doing a rental, you will have to fill out the rental form once you get down to the ski shop. Skis are able to be stored overnight in the private lessons check-in space. Each delegation is going to have at least one, if not multiple, large trash cans to put your skis in. So the larger your delegation, the more space you'll receive for that, and it'll all be properly labeled with your county's name so you know which one is yours. Please label all of your skis for your athletes. That way no one gets anything mixed up and someone takes Susie's pole and then Susie doesn't have it for her race. So we just really want to avoid as much confusion as possible. And this storage is for skis and poles only. Please don't put your helmets or your boots or any other personal items in there. It's strictly for skis and poles. Matt, I'm going to pass it back to you for the next few slides on the Alpine rules.
Okay, thanks, Kendall. I'm not going to go through all the rules. I'm just going to touch on some of the big ones as we've talked in depth about the new helmet rules. If there's any questions, please bring them up at the end of this webinar. We want to make sure we address any questions in regards to the new helmets. One clarification that I do want to bring forth about the helmet rule with the time trials. So in discussing with Special Olympics Maryland, we reviewed the rules in great detail, and per the SOI rules, they state the new helmets are to be used on giant slalom and Super G race courses for intermediate and advanced athletes. For time trials, we are setting a modified GS course. For anyone who isn't familiar about the difference between a giant slalom and a slalom course, and I'm going to go as quickly as possible, Kendall, is the spacing between gates. Typically, a giant slalom course has about 13 to 15 meters between gates. A slalom course has about 8 to 10 meters between gates. A modified giant slalom course is split in meets in the middle. So it's about 10 to 11 meters between gates, depending on conditions. So per the rules, athletes with any helmet, if an athlete is only competing in the slalom races on Tuesday, they can still run the time trial race course on Sunday with their existing helmets. So I think I butchered that a little bit. I apologize. So it's a modified GS course at time trials. If an athlete is only competing in the slalom race course, they can still run time trials with their existing helmet. The only courses they will need the new helmets are for the intermediate and advanced giant slalom and Super G. Outside of that, again, we've talked about coaching, and the only other rule I really want to touch on right now is the 1 minute rule. That was a change a couple years ago. The intermediate and advanced courses no longer have the 2 minute rule. That is 1 minute for when an athlete falls. That 1 minute timer starts to get themselves together, get righted on the course, and continue the race. If they fall again, the 1 minute time clock will start over. If there's multiple falls by an athlete, that will be an official's decision if there is a safety concern for the athlete on the course at that time. But outside of that, they were the only ones I really wanted to touch on. If there are any questions, by all means, you know how to get a hold of Kendall, myself, and we can address any specific rules questions after the webinar. Thanks, Kendall.
All right, thank you, Matt. So I know we do have some athletes who will be using the adaptive equipment provided by Two Top. So if you are one of those counties and you have any questions about adaptive equipment rules, please either follow up with me or Matt after the webinar, and we can make sure that you are as knowledgeable as possible. Same with any hearing impaired or visually impaired skiers. If you have any questions about that, we can follow up directly after. I know a lot of the counties don't have this, but if you do, so please just reach out if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. A few ONSO tips, I'm just going to go quickly through them because I'm sure you are all very aware of this. Have the health preparation checklist. The medical team has developed this to assist coaches and family members in helping to prepare Special Olympics athletes for attendance and competition in winter games. One of the biggest things is making sure that your athletes have all of their medications that they're going to need for the entire time, or if they have an allergy, that they have their EpiPen. We have 2 overnight stays, and we want to make sure that the athletes are as safe as possible, so please try to stay on top of this with all of your delegation members. Clothing, have your athletes in warm, water-resistant clothing. The biggest thing is layering. The weather can change so quick, so just if you wear a lot of layers, you can bundle on up, or you can take it off if you get too hot. Having a balanced diet is always important, so Whitetail has a very wide range of options for lunches. If your athlete is consistently trying to go for 2 bacon cheeseburgers, maybe steer them towards a different option. There's a lot there, including a salad and soup option. So the healthy diet is provided at Whitetail as well. They just need to choose it. Make sure that your athletes are staying hydrated. Although it is cold outside, that does not mean that we still shouldn't be drinking a ton of water. Your athletes and partners and coaches are working hard out there on the snow, so please just make sure that they are staying hydrated throughout the day. Coaches should know of each of their athletes' needs for protective or special athletic equipment. If you are in one of these scenarios, please just let me know ahead of time. That way I can inform the officials and they won't think anything's awry on the course itself. Accident procedures. So please do not remove equipment or move the injured person unless they are in immediate danger. We are working in conjunction with the ski patrol if it's on the mountain. We also have a medical team if it is not on the mountain, so if it's in the lodge. Please find someone who is either in one of the management team vests or an official on the course and let them know what you need, and we will get someone to you as soon as possible. Accident reports. If anything were to happen, we will have a form for you to fill out. So we appreciate your patience with this as we ask you a bunch of questions. Cross our fingers, we don't have to go through this, but just in case we do, some examples of information that we are going to ask you is listed below. Families and spectators. So if you have families that are coming out and they want to get on skis too, they are able to purchase lift tickets and rentals at our Special Olympics rate. So that is listed right here. It's $25 for a lift ticket only and $35 for a lift ticket and rental. The way that you're going to do this is not through the control center and not through the delegation. You will send them to the group sales area at Whitetail, which is on the first floor outside a little bit. And just mention that you're with Special Olympics and they will be able to take care of you in there. Don't go directly through the ticket sales lines. Make sure you speak to someone from group sales so they charge you the proper fee.
And that also pertains to meals. If there are family members who are not part of the official delegation, they can go to the group sales area and get a special discounted rate for meals as well.
So lunch can be purchased through the Whitetail cafeteria line, and dinner, families are entirely on their own. There's a whole bunch of local establishments around the Hagerstown area where we are all staying. If they're staying at the Ramada Plaza, they are not allowed to eat with the delegations on Monday night, but the Ramada does have a restaurant, the Fireside Restaurant and Lounge, and they are more than welcome to eat in there. For spectators, so a spectator walking pass is required for anyone who wants to be walking around on the base of snow. There's going to be walking passes available at Family Hospitality. There's no charge for them, but they do need to fill out a waiver, so please make sure that they know that they need to physically be there filling out their waiver instead of having one parent go up and grab 10 different walking passes for a whole group for your county. Family Hospitality and Merchandise is going to be in Whitetail Lodge on the second floor. We'll have a great setup for our merchandise, so make sure you check that out and see all the cool stuff that we're bringing. Spectator space is somewhat limited, so it's not always ideal as we are on a mountain. If you are sitting inside trying to get a good view, please just be aware of everyone else around you and share the space that we have available. So I kind of already spoke about attire and hydration. Like I said, the weather is being updated constantly. We can never predict it, but it looks like we are going to have winter games, so I'm okay with whatever we have as long as we have winter games.
This is Steve again. The special events, again, we talked about the opening ceremony will take place after dinner. It will be on the back porch area, same place it has been in the past. If you have anyone who, check with your head of delegation who has been selected to carry in the banner for the parade of athletes, they will report to that awards staging area for Alpine. That's where we're going to parade the athletes or delegation members carrying in the banner. Again, we talked about the theme of the dance, the Monster Mash, the family reception on Monday evening. That'll be taking place during the same time as the athletes' social and the dance. So families have their own space, and athletes and partners and coaches have their own social activity to have the camaraderie built there. We talked about award ceremonies. Again, the only thing I'll hit on that one is with the coaches meeting on Monday evening, during the award ceremonies, obviously that'll be having to take precedent. So we want you guys to be able to see your athletes getting their awards. So once the award ceremony is done, Matt and the Alpine crew will meet with you guys in the Alpine award staging tent right after the award ceremonies have been done to see if any questions came up on Monday and get ready for Tuesday. Overnight emergencies, again, as we mentioned earlier, all delegations have been luckily placed in one hotel. So we're all in the Ramada Plaza Inn. These are just phone numbers for overnight emergencies. We will have medical personnel at the hotel. But if for some reason there's any problematic reasons getting a hold of the medical personnel, here are two other emergency phone numbers to have. This is Mike Sarnowski's cell number and my cell number. These are truly intended for emergency situations. So, you know, don't call us if you need another pillow or need some more soap or whatever. And as I think we all know, if for some reason you have trouble getting a hold of anybody, don't hesitate. And 911, if it's a true emergency, call 911 and then let us know after that. Food services, we talked about the meals. Again, everyone will have a ticket for all the meals at Whitetail, the lunches and dinners, and the Ramada Plaza for the dinner on Monday evening. That's where everyone will need your credential. Without a credential, no entrance. Two reasons for that is one, to make sure that we're policing it, if you will, but also, again, due to budgetary purposes as well as seating capacity issues. That is why only delegation members are allowed at the dining facility at the Ramada Plaza on Monday evening. No families will be allowed in. So if you guys as coaches could help send that message along. As Kendall mentioned, there's many other dining areas in the immediate area. So the one thing I do want to say is look at ask your head of delegation to check the times for eating because of the limited seating capacity at the Ramada Plaza. We have designated times between 5 and 6 and 6 and 7. So the heads of delegation have all been given that information in regards to which delegations are prompted to eat at which times. And again, just be courteous knowing that there's a quick turnover to get everyone fed and then lead into the athlete social, that as soon as you get done eating, please don't, hang out and chit chat and all that. Get up to your rooms, make room for others to come in and get their meal so that we can then go into the athlete social that evening. Again, like we said, breakfast, we haven't mentioned breakfast, but breakfast on Monday and Tuesday will be at the Ramada Plaza. Again, same thing as dinner. Get in, get out, and make room for others, and just be courteous to everyone involved there. Medical, Kendall mentioned it. We're working with Whitetail. We have medical crew as well over at the snowshoeing area. There is also a clinic below the KMC learning facility. That's a walk-in clinic as well, that if somebody needs to get checked out, we can do that there. Also check with your heads of delegation. They should have copies if you don't, but you could also ask for a copy of the accident report so that you can start working on that if anything comes up. Evaluation, again, one of the things that we do as an organization is we always want to hear back from families, coaches, heads of delegation, athletes, partners, chaperones, volunteers, anybody and everybody. So we really, really, really want you to take this seriously. Here is the link that you can go to after the games. As coaches, you can also ask your athletes the questions that come up on the evaluation, and you as a coach, if athletes have a challenge with reading, with technology, with computer access or whatever, you can enter multiple evaluations as an individual. So we really ask you to get feedback from the athletes and partners as well. That will help us collect the information and prepare for upcoming years and really get a true sense of what the feedback is from all parties. The one thing I will also stress on that is that although we want to hear how we can improve, we also want to hear what you liked. So just if there are things that you liked, please note that in the evaluations as well. As an example, in previous evaluation surveys, there may be 15 people who said we didn't like the hot dogs at cycling. So we changed from hot dogs and brought in new meals the next year. And then everybody complained about the new meals and said, why we like the other meals. So we need to hear back from you and everyone else within your delegation what you liked and what you would like us to see improvement on as we move forward.
So before I jump into some of the questions that were answered, I just want to give a reminder, if your county has not submitted how many lift tickets, lift plus rentals, and lunch tickets you will need for each day, please make sure to send that to me. I know there's only a few counties who are missing some information, so I will follow up with you tomorrow if I have not heard anything. But if you know that's you, please let me know ASAP. So I am going to start with Melanie Allen asked a question about families eating dinner Sunday night at Whitetail. Do they do a discount for those who aren't a partner, coach, or athlete?
Again, with all delegations, we'll get a meal ticket. Now, the families can purchase meal tickets through the group sales office. They will not necessarily have the additional items. As I mentioned, the fruit cups and dessert options, it will be their standard tickets. So just go to group sales and mention that you are with Special Olympics, and they will give you a discounted ticket for the dinner on Sunday evening. If they want to stay and have dinner on Monday, they're welcome to do that as well. But again, just let the families know. Obviously, I don't think there'll be any problems, but knowing we have a lot of people to get in and out of dinner there, to be cognizant of the fact, and again, just be ready to clean up your stuff and move along.
Thank you, Steve. Matt, this next question is for you from Larry Pearl. Will the final race times be determined by the best of the two race times or the sum of the two race times?
It's the sum of the two race times. For time trials, it is the best of the two that is used for their divisioning. The competition is a combination of the two race times.
With the exception of the Super G, which is just the
correct.
The second run. Yeah.
Correct. Super G, the first run is a practice run only. The second one is the timed run. Thank you, Mike.
And then the last question that I am seeing is from Diane. And Matt, she's asking if you could repeat what you said about helmets for time trials.
I knew somebody was going to say that. For the new helmets are only required on giant slalom and Super G races at their intermediate and advanced levels. At time trials, we're doing a modified GS. So we are allowing athletes, if they're competing in either, and I just want to make sure I cover everything here, any novice event, whether it's novice, giant slalom, or intermediate or advanced slalom races, athletes are allowed to race in those competitions with their existing helmets. So we will, at time trial, since it's a modified giant slalom, the distance between gates is not as much as a giant slalom. So if athletes are competing in the slalom-only competitions, they can run the time trials with only their existing helmet. Did that make sense, Diane?
If anyone has any other questions, we do have the snowshoeing call directly after this that we have to start preparing for. So if you have any, actually it looks like Diane just typed this question. After this question, if anyone has anything else, please just send it to me in an email and I will get back to you tonight. But Matt, Diane said that did answer her question. So great job on that one. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Like I said, I will be sending out this recording as well as the slides. Any questions, comments, or concerns, you have my contact information, so just reach out to me and I will address it all with you. But until then, I will see you at Winter Games. Thanks, everybody.